The Grand Council chamber of New Geneva hung suspended in Earth's orbit like a crystal terrarium, its transparent walls offering a breathtaking view of humanity's homeworld below. Daniel Harrison stood at the observation deck, straightening his diplomatic uniform for the third time in 10 minutes. After 15 years representing Earth in the Galactic Council, he thought he'd seen everything. He was wrong. "They want me to what?" he asked again, staring at Admiral Patel's holographic projection. "You heard correctly the first time," the Admiral replied, her weathered face showing a hint of amusement. "The late King Aldrich of the Etherian Empire has named you legal guardian to his youngest daughter, Princess Rihanna." Daniel ran a hand through his graying hair. The Etherians were among the oldest spacefaring races, proud beings of crystalline beauty who considered themselves the pinnacle of evolution. They didn't ask humans for anything, let alone entrust them with their royalty. "There must be some mistake," he said. "I never even met King Aldrich." "No mistake." The declaration was verified by 12 different quantum authenticators. The Admiral's expression grew serious. "There's something else you should know. The princess is different." "Different how?" "She's an empath. Not just the usual Etherian sensitivity, she's orders of magnitude stronger. Their society considers it a defect." Daniel felt his jaw tighten. In his experience, when advanced civilizations called something a defect, they usually meant it was something they couldn't control. The council chamber began filling with representatives from across the galaxy. Crystalline Etherians floated in on gravity platforms, their faceted bodies refracting light in dazzling patterns. Vapor-based mistwalkers swirled in their containment fields. Even a few quantum collective nodes had materialized for the occasion. High Chancellor Vyrix, the Etherian regent, took the central podium. His crystalline form pulsed with deep blue light, the color of barely contained disdain. "We are gathered to witness the execution of King Aldrich's final wishes," Vyrix announced, his translated voice echoing through the chamber. "Concerning Princess Rihanna, whose condition requires special accommodation." Daniel noticed how several Etherian nobles vibrated in frequencies he recognized as their equivalent of derisive laughter. The massive doors at the chamber's far end opened. A small figure entered, escorted by guards who maintained careful distance. Princess Rihanna moved with practiced grace, but Daniel saw how she kept her head slightly bowed, her crystalline form emitting only the faintest purple light, the color of shame among her people. She was young for an Etherian, perhaps equivalent to a human teenager. Unlike her kin's sharp angles, her crystalline form had softer curves, and her light pulsed in complex patterns he'd never seen before. "Ambassador Harrison," Vyrix announced, "do you accept guardianship of Princess Rihanna until she reaches the age of maturity in 50 standard years?" Daniel stepped forward, feeling the weight of hundreds of alien gazes. He looked at Rihanna, really looked, and saw something in the way her light flickered, hope, fear, and something else. Loneliness. "Before I accept," he said, causing murmurs among the assembly, "I have a question for the princess herself." Vyrix's color shifted to orange, surprise. "The princess's opinions are irreal dash. They are entirely relevant to me," Daniel interrupted, breaking about 12 diplomatic protocols. He turned to Rihanna. "Your Highness, do you want this arrangement?" The chamber fell silent. Rihanna's form brightened slightly, and suddenly Daniel felt a gentle touch in his mind, warmth, gratitude, and a desperate desire for acceptance. "I do," she said, her translated voice soft but clear. "Then I accept," Daniel announced. "With all responsibilities and rights thereof." Vyrix's color shifted to deep red. "You will receive the princess's medication schedule. Her condition must be properly managed dash. Her gift," Daniel corrected firmly, "will be respected. As will her right to make decisions about her own well-being." He walked to Rihanna and bowed slightly. "Welcome to Earth's diplomatic corps, Your Highness. Shall we?" As they walked out together, Daniel felt another gentle mental touch, this time carrying a feeling he hadn't experienced in years: hope. Behind them, the council chamber erupted in shocked discussions, but he didn't care. He had a feeling this was going to be the most interesting diplomatic assignment of his career. 3 weeks after the council meeting, Daniel found himself in Earth's orbital diplomatic compound, watching his ward attempt to eat spaghetti. Princess Rihanna held the fork awkwardly in her crystalline appendage, light pulsing in patterns that Daniel had learned meant curiosity mixed with frustration. "Fascinating," she said, as another noodle slipped away. "Humans derive pleasure from wrestling with their sustenance?" Daniel chuckled. "Not exactly. But I thought you might enjoy experiencing some human customs." He'd been gradually introducing her to Earth culture, finding that each new experience helped her emerge further from her shell. Their peaceful dinner was interrupted by an urgent chime from the communication panel. Crown Prince Theron's massive form filled the screen, his crystalline body pulsing aggressive red. "Sister," he said, not bothering to acknowledge Daniel. "Your medication levels are dangerously low. Our monitors indicate you haven't taken your suppressants in over 2 weeks." Rihanna's light dimmed to a fearful purple, but Daniel noticed she sat straighter in her chair. "I don't need them anymore, brother. I'm learning to control my abilities naturally." "Control?" Theron's form flashed brilliant scarlet. "You are a danger to everyone around you. Ambassador Harrison, surely you understand the risk of an unmedicated empath? She could be influencing you right now." Daniel stepped forward. "The only influence I'm under is my diplomatic training, which is currently preventing me from telling you exactly what I think of your empire's treatment of empaths." "How dare Theron began, but stopped as alarms suddenly blared through the compound. "Warning," the AI announced. "Multiple Etherian warships have entered Earth's orbital space without clearance." Daniel's hand moved to the emergency beacon on his wrist. "Prince Theron, any unauthorized military action will be considered an act of war. We are here to protect our sister from your influence," Theron declared. "She will return home for proper treatment." Rihanna moved to Daniel's side, her form glowing with a clarity he'd never seen before. "I am home," she said. To Daniel's surprise, her translated voice carried an authority that reminded him of her late father. Suddenly, every screen in the compound lit up with unexpected transmissions. Diplomats from a dozen species appeared, all demanding emergency sessions with Earth's representatives. Daniel's tablet flooded with reports of unprecedented breakthroughs in ongoing negotiations. "What's happening?" he wondered aloud. Rihanna said quietly. Her light pulsed in complex patterns that seemed to ripple through the compound. "For the first time, I'm not fighting what I am." Daniel watched in amazement as reports continued pouring in. A century-old trade dispute between the Mistwalkers and the Quantum Collective, resolved in minutes. A territorial conflict that had sparked 3 wars, suddenly seeing new paths to peace. "You're helping them understand each other," he realized. "Not controlling, not influencing, just helping them feel what others feel." "Impossible," Theron sputtered, his image still dominating the main screen. "These are matters of state, of logic and law. Emotions have no place. Emotions are exactly what have been missing," Daniel interrupted. "Your sister isn't defective, Prince Theron. She's what every diplomat in the galaxy wishes they could be, a bridge between minds and hearts." The compound's AI chimed again. "Incoming transmission from the Galactic Council. Emergency session called to discuss." There was a pause, the revolutionary new approach to diplomatic relations demonstrated by Princess Rihanna of the Etherian Empire. Rihanna's light flickered with uncertainty. "They want me to appear before the council? But they always said I was too unstable, too dangerous." Daniel smiled. "They're about to learn what I figured out 3 weeks ago, that sometimes the thing people fear most is exactly what they need most." He turned to face Theron's increasingly agitated image. Your warships have exactly 10 minutes to leave Earth's orbit, Your Highness. The princess has a council session to prepare for. After Theron's image vanished in a flash of furious red, Daniel turned to Rihanna. Are you ready for this? Her form pulsed with a new color, a bright, clear gold that seemed to fill the room with confidence. I've spent my life being told what I am was wrong, she said. It's time to show the galaxy what I can truly be. As they prepared to leave for the council chamber, Daniel felt that now familiar gentle touch in his mind, carrying feelings of gratitude and determination. But there was something else too, a sense of growing danger, of hidden forces moving against them. He made a mental note to double the compound's security. Something told him their challenges were just beginning. The Galactic Council chamber felt different this time. Instead of the usual cold formality, the air hummed with anticipation. Daniel walked beside Rihanna, noting how delegates from across the galaxy leaned forward as she passed. Her crystalline form glowed with a steady azure light, nervous but determined. High Chancellor Vyrix awaited them at the central podium, his own crystalline body radiating deep purple disapproval. Princess Rihanna, he announced, you stand accused of unauthorized use of empathic abilities, potentially influencing diplomatic proceedings across 3 sectors. Before Daniel could protest, an unexpected voice rang out. I challenge that accusation. A Mist Walker representative floated forward, her vaporous form swirling with conviction. The princess didn't influence our negotiations, she enabled them. For the first time in centuries, we truly understood our adversary's perspective. Understanding is not diplomacy, Vyrix countered. Our protocols exist for a reason. Structure. Order. Logic. And where has that gotten us? This time it was a quantum collective node that pulsed into existence. Endless cycles of the same conflicts, generation after generation. Daniel stepped forward. Members of the council, in the past 3 weeks, Princess Rihanna has helped resolve more disputes than traditional diplomacy managed in the past 3 years. Not through manipulation, but through something we've forgotten, empathy. Suddenly, the chamber's lights flickered. Security alerts blared as armed figures materialized through failing shield generators. Their crystalline forms pulsed with aggressive red, Etherian royal guards. The princess will return home, Prince Theron's voice boomed as he appeared among his guards. This farce has gone on long enough. But something was different about Rihanna now. Instead of shrinking back, she stepped forward, her form blazing with brilliant white light. No, brother. This charade has gone on long enough. To everyone's shock, she pulled out a small crystalline shard, one that pulsed with the unmistakable royal signature of King Aldrich himself. Father knew, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. He knew what the suppression was doing to our people. The Etherian Empire wasn't always like this. We were healers once, bridging the gaps between species, helping forge the first interstellar alliances. She inserted the crystal into the council's central display. King Aldrich's image appeared, his final testimony playing for all to see. To those who witnessed this, know that our greatest strength became our greatest shame. We feared what we couldn't control, suppressed what we didn't understand. But in doing so, we lost our way. My daughter, my Rihanna, carries the pure gift of our ancestors. And so I entrust her to humanity, not because they are lesser, but because they still remember what we forgot, that emotion and logic, heart and mind, must work as one. The chamber fell silent. Daniel watched as Rihanna's light pulsed with complex patterns of gold and silver, sadness for what was lost, hope for what could be. Theron raised his weapon. Pretty words don't change reality. The Empire requires dash. The Empire requires healing, a new voice rang out. From the shadows emerged Lyra, the royal physician, her form pulsing with urgent patterns. Your Highness, the suppression drugs, they're killing us. Slowly, generation by generation, they're destroying our ability to connect, to truly live. Chaos erupted in the chamber as more Etherians came forward, their own lights pulsing with long-hidden truths. Some revealed they'd stopped taking the suppressants. Others spoke of feeling half alive for centuries. Daniel moved protectively closer to Rihanna, but she gently touched his arm. "It's all right," she said. "Can't you feel it? The fear is finally giving way to something else." And he could feel it, through her careful sharing of her gift, the ripples of change moving through the chamber. Understanding. Compassion. Hope. Theron's guards lowered their weapons, their own forms beginning to pulse with uncertain colors. The prince himself seemed to dim, his aggressive red fading to confused orange. "How long have you known?" he asked Rihanna. "Father told me before he died. He wanted me to find proof myself, to understand my gift wasn't a curse." She turned to Daniel. "That's why he chose you. Humans never lost their connection to their emotions, never tried to suppress their deepest nature." But even as understanding dawned in the chamber, Daniel noticed shadows moving in the upper galleries. Not everyone would welcome this change. Not everyone would want the old ways to end. The real battle, he realized, was just beginning. Above the glittering spires of the Galactic Council station, ships from a dozen species had gathered. Not in war formation, but in protection, forming a barrier between Earth and the approaching Etherian battle fleet. Daniel watched from the diplomatic chamber as more vessels arrived hourly. "They're coming to support her," Admiral Patel's hologram explained. "Every species touched by Princess Rihanna's diplomatic work over the past month. They're calling it the Empathy Coalition." Rihanna stood beside him, her crystalline form pulsing with complex emotions. Through their strengthened mental connection, Daniel felt her mixture of hope and concern. "So many willing to stand with us," she said softly. "I never imagined." The chamber door chimed, admitting Lyra, the royal physician. Her own crystalline form had changed since she stopped taking the suppressants, showing more vibrant colors and fluid patterns. "The test results are complete," she announced. "What we found." She paused, her light dimming to sorrowful blue. "Tell us," Daniel encouraged. "The suppression drugs don't just dampen empathic abilities. They're altering our very essence. Each generation of Etherians grows more rigid, more crystallized. We're literally turning to stone from the inside out." Rihanna's form flashed with shock. "That's why there are fewer children each century. We're dying," Lyra finished. "As a species. Another few generations and we'll lose the ability to reproduce entirely." Daniel felt the horror ripple through Rihanna's mind. But who would do this? Why? The answer came from an unexpected source. Prince Theron materialized in the chamber, his form noticeably different. Since renouncing the suppressants, his crystals had begun showing more organic patterns. "The ancestral houses," he said, his voice heavy with newly discovered emotion. "I've been investigating since you showed us the truth, sister. The oldest noble families have been controlling the suppression program for millennia. They profit from our people's dependence on the drugs. But surely they know it's killing us?" Rihanna asked. "They believe they can perfect the crystallization process. Create a truly unchanging, immortal form." Theron's light pulsed with disgust. "They want to turn our entire species into living computers, incapable of emotion or change." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station. The Etherian battle fleet had arrived, led by a massive crystalline dreadnought. Its surface was completely geometric, showing no signs of organic patterns, a ship crewed by fully suppressed Etherians. "This is Lord Hyperion of the First House," a cold voice announced station-wide. "Surrender the defective princess and the human ambassador. The corruption of emotion must not spread." Daniel felt Rihanna's resolve strengthen through their connection. She turned to her brother. "The fleet, will they listen to you as crown prince?" Theron's form dimmed. Many are controlled by the houses. But some might remember who we once were. Then we remind them, Rihanna said. She turned to Daniel. Will you help me? What I'm planning, it's never been attempted. Daniel smiled. Whatever you need. She extended her crystalline hands to both Daniel and Theron. The houses think emotion makes us weak. Let's show them how wrong they are. As they joined hands, Daniel felt Rihanna's consciousness expand. Not just touching minds, but bridging them. Through her, he felt Theron's centuries of suppressed feelings flooding back. Then further, touching the minds of other Etherians on the station, each connection strengthening the next. Rihanna's form began to glow with unprecedented brilliance. Through their linked minds, Daniel understood her plan. She wasn't just going to show them emotion, she was going to remind an entire species of who they really were. But as her power built, dark shapes emerged from hidden passages in the station. House assassins, their crystalline forms completely geometric, weapons raised. The abomination must not be allowed to continue, they declared in perfect unison. The final battle for the soul of an empire was about to begin. The Galactic Council station became a battlefield of light and shadow. House assassins moved with mechanical precision, their geometric forms reflecting no emotion, no hesitation. But they faced something they couldn't compute, unity. Rihanna stood at the center of it all, her crystalline form blazing like a newborn star. Through her connection with Daniel and Theron, her consciousness continued to expand, touching mind after mind throughout the station and beyond. Each contact awakened something long dormant in the Etherian people. Remember who we are, her voice echoed, both spoken and felt. Remember what was taken from us. The assassins fired their weapons, but security forces from a dozen species moved to protect her. Among them, Etherians who had cast off their suppression fought their geometric brethren, their forms showing flowing, organic patterns that hadn't been seen in millennia. Above the station, Lord Hyperion's dreadnought opened fire. But the shots were met by shields from the combined fleet of the Empathy Coalition. Through their mental link, Daniel felt Rihanna reaching further, touching the minds of the ship crews above. Your own people are dying, she projected to them. Feel the truth. One by one, ships in the Etherian battle fleet began powering down their weapons. Crystal forms throughout the fleet started pulsing with long-forgotten colors as centuries of suppression began to fade. Lord Hyperion's voice boomed through the station, this corruption ends now. The dreadnought's main cannon began charging, aimed directly at the station's heart. But Rihanna wasn't finished. With Daniel and Theron anchoring her, she reached out to the dreadnought itself. Feel what you've lost, she commanded. Through their connection, Daniel experienced what she shared, memories passed down through generations. Etherians as they once were, beings of light and crystal who could touch the emotions of the cosmos itself. Healers who helped forge the first bonds between species. Diplomats who could bridge any divide because they understood all sides. The dreadnought's cannon flickered and died as its crew began to transform. Even Lord Hyperion's geometric form started showing cracks, organic patterns emerging as millennia of suppression broke down. What have you done to us? Hyperion's voice shook with the first emotion it had felt in centuries. Not done to you, Rihanna answered. Done for you. For all of us. The assassins dropped their weapons, their perfect geometric forms beginning to shift and flow. Throughout the station, throughout the fleet, throughout the entire Etherian Empire, a wave of awakening spread. Daniel felt it all through their connection, the pain of remembering, the joy of reconnection, the grief for all that was lost, and the hope for what could be rebuilt. Theron stepped forward, his form now showing swirling patterns of authority tempered by compassion. The house's control ends today. Our people will be free to feel again, to grow again, to live again. As the crisis subsided, representatives from across the galaxy gathered in the council chamber. They watched in awe as Etherian crystal forms throughout the station continued to transform, becoming more fluid, more alive. The suppressants will take time to fade completely, Lyra reported, her medical scans showing promising results. But already I'm seeing signs of cellular regeneration. Our species can heal. Daniel turned to Rihanna, who swayed slightly from her monumental effort. You did it, he said softly. You saved your people. She touched his hand, sharing a feeling of completion and new beginnings. We did it. All of us. Everything my father hoped for when he chose you as my guardian, it wasn't just about protecting me. It was about bringing together the best of both our peoples. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Changes would need to be made. The Etherian Empire would transform. But as Daniel watched Rihanna take her place among the delegates, her form glowing with confident purpose, he knew the galaxy would never be the same. Your father would be proud, he told her. Her answering pulse of light carried the warmth of a smile. He knew what I'm just learning, sometimes the thing that makes us different is exactly what makes us strong. As delegates from across the galaxy came forward to begin building new accords, Daniel felt a final touch from Rihanna's mind. Not just gratitude or friendship, but a sense of family. Different species, different forms, but united by something stronger than genetics or politics, the simple power of understanding one another. The age of suppression was over. The age of empathy had begun.